Live from the BDN Studios, it's Bang and Dang.
That's awesome.
If you don't like that, then
You ain't black.
Welcome back to Battles of the American Civil War with your host, Bang and Dang here. We are been into October, but October 21st is the day we're covering here. 3 separate battles, 3 separate states raging on. We got the Battle of Camp Wildcat in Kentucky, the Battle of Fredericktown, Missouri, and the Battle of Bluff. Battle of Bluff or Leesburg, whatever you want to say, in Virginia. And
I like Leesburg.
Because you're a Confederate.
Oh, am I?
And that's where we get. Obviously, starting out, they're all October 21st, 1861, Battle of Camp Wildcat. We're going to do first here. Very short ones, except for, well, Ball's Bluff was decent size. A Class B battle, Class C for Wildcat, Class D for Fredericktown.
Well, at least they're not skirmishes. We got some battles.
Well, there's an engagement. It's actually called the engagement at Fredericktown, but engagement is a battle, right?
Yeah, engaged in battle.
Camp Wildcat. Take place October 21st to 1861. Got the Union Army led by Brigadier General Elbin F. Schopf. And Colonel Theophilus T. Girard, who was actually in command until the arrival of Schopf.
He was in the last episode.
He was. We got the infantry, which has the 33rd Indiana, the 7th Kentucky, the 14th Ohio, the 17th Ohio, the 38th Ohio, the 1st East Tennessee, 2nd East Tennessee,
Nice.
the 38th. The last 3 are not engaged at the battle, but that was the infantry they had with them there. Artillery, we had the Battery B of the 1st Ohio Light Artillery and the Standard. Oh, no, that was the captain.
Right.
And the Cavalry, we have a 1st Kentucky Cavalry dismounted, though.
They don't make him a cavalry.
Does not, right? And over on the Confederate side, led by Brigadier General Felix K. Zollicoffer.
He was in the last one, too.
He was. We have their infantry of the 15th Mississippi, 11th Tennessee, 17th Tennessee, the 20th Tennessee, and 29th Tennessee. Then we have the Artillery, Battery A of the Tennessee Artillery Corps, and the 2nd Tennessee Cavalry Battalion. Well, on April 15th, 1861, at the outbreak of the Civil War, we know President Abraham Lincoln called upon the states and the Union to provide volunteers to shut down the insurrection. Pro-Confederate Kentucky Governor Beriah Magoffin refused to send troops, but since the majority of the members, which we had a couple episodes ago, were pro-Union,
right,
his call for volunteers did not prompt the state to secede. On the 16th of May, a Kentucky Legislative Committee recommended that the state remain neutral in the conflict, and Governor Magoffin proclaimed the state's neutrality on May 20th.
Right. He's like, we're not sending troops. And they're
We're
like,
not going to send troops.
We're not supporting the Confederate either. He's like, all right, whatever.
We'll just stay here.
Right. Which is, well, it's all right? Let them be Switzerland.
Except for were they?
Right. Well, half of them probably were. Elections, August 5th, 1861. Kentucky voters returned a veto-proof majority of pro-Union members to the House of Representatives and the Senate. August 6th, 1861. Camp Dick Robinson, a Union camp, was established near Lexington. On September 2nd, 1861, the Kentucky General Assembly raised the United States flag. We said this last.
Right. Just a little background.
So I got the flag hanging over the Kentucky State Capitol at Frankfort, the United States flag. On that very next day, September 3rd, Confederate Major General Leonidas Polk ordered Brigadier General Gideon Pillow to seize Columbus, Kentucky, and the Mississippi River before the Union forces could do so. He's like, we need Columbus and the surrounding Mississippi River area before Union gets here. This ended Kentucky's neutrality, led to Union Brigadier General Ulysses S. Grant's seizure of Paducah, Kentucky on September 6th, and other military movements and actions by both Union and Confederate armies in Kentucky soon afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So they're no longer neutral. Now they got to pick a side, right?
As I believe we see in Barberville, which we covered either last week or a couple of weeks ago.
Or they like basically draw a line in the middle of the state.
I think there was a line to be drawn. Brigadier General Felix Zollicoffer's Confederates had moved from Tennessee to push the Cumberland Gap into central Kentucky in an effort to gain control of that important border state.
Right.
September 14th, 1861, 10 days after his 5,400-man force left their base, Zollicoffer occupied the Cumberland Gap and took a position at the Cumberland Ford near present-day Pineville, Kentucky.
Okay.
He did that to counter Unionist activity in the area where Union
Obviously.
supporters had been organizing and training recruits from Kentucky and East Tennessee at Camp Andrew Johnson at Barberville, Kentucky, which led to the Battle of the Barberville.
Right. A little, okay, nice. 19th September, Zollicoffer sent about 800 men under Colonel Joel Battle against Camp Andrew Johnson, which had been largely vacated. We said this. The Union recruits having moved to nearby Camp Dick Robinson, they abandoned that one, went to the other camp, where several thousand federal troops were gathered under the command of Brigadier General George Thomas. As Battle's men approached Camp Johnson, they met a force of 300 pro-Union home guards under Captain Isaac J. Black, who hastily removed the planking from the bridge to prevent, so they couldn't come over.
Right.
Sharp skirmishing broke out, but Battle's superior numbers prevailed, and Zollicoffer's Confederates drove off Battle's men.
How does the superior numbers prevail and gets drove off?
Zollicoffer's, as I just would have said, Zollicoffer's superior numbers prevailed, and his Confederates drove off Battle's men.
I don't think so.
With the Union force suffering 1 killed, 1 wounded, 13 captured, Confederates losing 7 dead. Dang. His men seized the camp, destroying the buildings and captured the arms and equipment left behind by the retreating recruits.
Well, although Zollicoffer briefly withdrew to his camp at Cumberland Ford near the Cumberland Gap, he sent a detachment of his men to drive off another Union Home Guard force at a camp at Laurel Bridge in Laurel County, Kentucky, soon after the Battle of Barbersville. On the 28th of September, another Confederate detachment seized 200 barrels of salt and destroyed the Goose Creek Salt Works in Clay County, Kentucky.
Right.
They returned to camp at Cumberland Ford on September 30th. On October 16th, Zollicoffer returned to the offensive in an effort to move into central Kentucky.
Right. And this is all.
So now he's like, we did all that. We got to go into central Kentucky now.
Right. We're recapping the whole last episode.
Yeah. It's fine.
In response to Zollicoffer's actions, Union Brigadier General Thomas sent troops under Colonel Theophilus T. Gerard to set up a Camp Wildcat, Rockcastle Hills, near London, Kentucky.
You down like go from London.
At the base of the Wildcat.
Kentucky.
Right. At the base of the Wildcat Mountain, 30 miles north of the Salt Works, in order to secure the ford on the Rockcastle River and to obstruct the Wilderness Road passing through the area. Colonel Gerard informed General Thomas that if he did not receive reinforcements, he would have to retreat. He reported he was outnumbered 7-1. Thomas sent Brigadier General Elbin F. Scope with what amounted to a brigade of men to Colonel Gerard. Nice. So you got about 5,000.
2,500 to 5,000.
Bringing the total Union forces to 7,000 fighters. Scope arrived on the 20th of October, a day before Zollicoffer moved against the camp.
Couldn't have came any sooner, huh?
Ooh.
The Union force awaited Zollicoffer's Confederate troops who had to pass the stronghold at Camp Wildcat to proceed into central Kentucky. Zollicoffer was unaware that the camp had been reinforced and further mistook a column of Union reinforcements arriving during the afternoon of October 20th as the entire Union force preparing for battle.
Right.
So what he saw were the reinforcements coming, and he thought that was the whole thing.
Right.
Union pickets skirmished with the Confederates on the evening of October 20th and returned to camp to report that a large Confederate force was nearby. They're coming, boys. Better get ready.
Jeez. As the Confederates started up the Wilderness Road on the morning of the 21st of October, General Scope moved 4 companies of the 33rd Indiana Infantry, 350 men. He moved them 3/4 mile to the east of Camp Wildcat to Round Hill, a steep, high point along the road. Okay, that's a good idea there. Confederate pickets attacked the Union forces just after they arrived at Round Hill, but the Confederates soon withdrew to report the situation to General Zollicoffer. I mean, you got to, right? Zollicoffer sent most of the 2 regiments, the 11th Tennessee and several companies of the 17th Tennessee Infantry, to attack the Union detachment at Round Hill.
All right. Time to go to battle, boys. Just before the attack, the companies from the 33rd Indiana were reinforced by 250 men of the 1st Kentucky Volunteer Cavalry Regiment and a small number of home guards. The Confederate regiments attacked the steep hill, but after an hour of fighting, the 11th Tennessee Infantry retreated. Soon thereafter, Union reinforcements arrived, forcing the 17th Tennessee Infantry to retreat as well. Zollicoffer then set the 29th. He was like, all right, you Tennessees didn't do anything over there. We're going to send you last ones. The 29th Tennessee Infantry and several companies of the 17th Tennessee Infantry to attack a location called the South Rim across the road from Round Hill. By then, the Union had fortified this point, and the Confederate attack on this point also failed.
Of course they fortified that point. What the hell is he should have done all that at once.
Well, clearly didn't know that they had reinforcements.
Right. Later, the Confederates failed to detect a gap between the 33rd Indiana Infantry and the 7th Kentucky Volunteer Infantry before Colonel Girard sent reinforcements to close it. With casualties mounting to no effect, Zollicoffer ceased attacking the Union position. The Confederates withdrew during the night. They continued their retreat to Cumberland Ford, which they reached on the 26th of October. Dang.
Just running away with their battles, or their tails between their legs.
Right.
Union casualties were 5 killed, 20 wounded, while the Confederates suffered 11 killed and 42 wounded or missing. After Union Army defeats early in the year, especially at the Battle of Big Bethel and the Bull Run, and on the same day at the Battle of Ball's Bluff, thanks for the spoiler, a Union victory was welcomed in the North.
Right.
In November, the Union force completed the Big Sandy Expedition. This set the stage for the Battle of Mill Springs and the death of General Zollicoffer on the 19th of January, 1862.
A couple months from now, Zollicoffer is going to be pushing up daisies.
Right around the corner.
The battlefield, about 9 miles northwest of modern-day London, Kentucky, is located on land held by Daniel Boone National Forest and is in private hands.
Oh, wow.
The Confederate monument at Crab Orchard, miles to the west, memorializes some of the Confederates that died at the battle.
Just some.
And others.
And others.
Much of the battlefield, almost 130 acres, which is 53
hectares or
something like that, was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1979. Another 440 acres, embracing 2 sections of the battlefield that had been designated historical archaeological sites, was added to the original designation in 2006. Okay, so they got another 180 acres added to that. The Civil War Trust.
440 acres, but...
The Civil War Trust, which is a division of the American Battlefield Trust, and its partners have acquired and preserved 264 acres of the battlefield.
That brings us to the engagement at Fredericktown, also called the Battle of Fredericktown. It was a battle of the American Civil War. It took place October 21st in Madison County, Missouri. We got on the United States side, we got Colonel Joseph B. Plummer and Colonel William P. Carlin, and got the 11th Missouri Infantry, strength of 25 to 3,500 men.
Ooh-wee.
On the other side, we got the Missouri Home Guard, or State Guard, my bad, led by Brigadier General M. Jeff Thompson.
They got 1,500 out.
And 1,500. October 1861, Missouri State Guard Brigadier General M. Jeff Thompson led a 1,500-man force into southern Missouri. On October 15th, he burned the Iron Mountain Railroad Bridge over the Big River in Jefferson County, capturing many of the bridge guards.
Okay.
2 Union columns, one under Colonel Joseph B. Plummer with 1,500 men, and another under Colonel William P. Carlin with 3,000 men, were sent in pursuit.
Ooh-wee.
By October 20th, Thompson had learned of the Union pursuit and withdrew south of Fredericktown.
Obviously.
That evening, however, he decided to attack the Federal advance with his infantry.
Oh, no. Okay.
He's like, we ain't running.
Right. What an idiot. Thompson spent the early morning hours trying to determine the enemy's numbers and disposition. Unable to do so, he placed his troops and artillery in ambush along the road and awaited the Union forces. The bulk of the Missouri State Guard force was hidden from view on wooden high ground that formed a U overlooking the road, which is pretty good there.
It's almost a circle.
Right. Forward of the main body, Colonel Aidan Lowe's infantry regiment waited in a cornfield as bait. Close behind was a sporting 12-pounder cannon, as well as 3 6-pounders farther to the rear and flank.
Dang,
okay, so
we're set up, huh?
All right, nice.
Well, about noon, Plummer arrived with his column and a detachment of Colonel William P. Carlin's troops. Captain Stewart's Illinois Cavalry Company made the initial contact. Colonel Ross's 17th Illinois Infantry engaged Lowe's troops first with skirmishers, then main line of the regiment.
Ooh.
A section of Union artillery was brought into service against the Missourians' 12-pounder, which responded. Obviously. The 12th Illinois and 11th Missouri for the Union applied pressure to both flanks of Lowe's force as more Union artillery joined the battle. Lowe, having waited too long to disengage, was killed by a shot to the head.
Oh, no.
And his regiment retreated, taking heavy casualties.
Oh, no. Yeah, well, they were bait. So. First Indiana Cavalry attempted to pursue and to capture the exposed 12-pounder, but were stopped with heavy casualties by the fire of Thompson's forces on both ridges. Oh, man.
I would say so.
They called for infantry support, and the 17th Illinois surged forward to claim the new abandoned peace. Now abandoned peace. It's still new to them, right? As more Union infantry poured onto the field, Thompson began an orderly withdrawal of the guardsmen. In this, he mostly succeeded, except for some routing cavalry.
Thompson's Missouri State Guardsmen suffered a total of 145 casualties during the battle, including 25 dead, 40 wounded, and 80 captured.
They lost lots.
They also lost 1 artillery piece, an old iron 12-pounder.
I think that's just as bad as the 145 men. That 12-pounder and...
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
I say it was an old iron 12-pounder.
Valuing materials over humans.
It was just an old 12-pounder.
Union casualties reported as 7 killed and about 60 wounded. There were a number of other casualties, primarily Union and skirmishes before and after the battle.
Even with the setup in the woods and all that, they Union only had 7 casualties. That is actually pretty good. Or some terrible shooting by the Confederates.
Right.
Wow. And these guys lost 100 and what? 62? 42?
25 dead.
25 dead?
Yeah.
Some of the Union soldiers believed that locals had assisted Thompson in the engagement. They were also angered by the perceived mistreatment of Unionist citizens along the line of the march. This resentment led to retaliation against the town by the rank and file.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, of course. We all know about the Union running into towns and burning them down. At least 7 homes in Fredericktown were burned and other buildings damaged before the officers regained control of their men. Looting and...
What are you going to do when you think...
raping the women.
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
Sometimes. Brings us to our last battle of the day, the Battle of Ball's Bluff, which took place same day in Loudoun County, Virginia.
This one not so good for the old Unions.
In which the Union Army forces under Major General George McClellan suffered a humiliating defeat.
Dang, McClellan. He later became, he is a Major General now.
Yes, he was. 3 months after the first Battle of Bull Run, Major General George B. McClellan was building up the Army of the Potomac in preparation for an eventual advance into Virginia. On October 19, 1861, McClellan ordered Brigadier General George A. McCall to march his division to Drainesville, Virginia, 12 miles southeast of Leesburg, in order to discover the purpose of recent Confederate troop movements, which indicated that Colonel Nathan Shanks Evans might have abandoned Leesburg.
Oh, he's thinking, I don't think we have a post at Leesburg anymore because why are all these Confederates moving in?
So he's saying all these Confederates are moving out. Did
right.
they abandon Leesburg, and can we go and swoop down and take that shit real quick?
Colonel Evans, in fact, left the town on the 16th or 17th of October, but had done so on his own authority. When Confederate Brigadier General P.G.T. Beauregard expressed his displeasure at this, Evans returned.
He's like, man, come on. We were doing nothing here anyways.
Did anybody tell you to leave your spot?
Right, he's like, what are you doing, dude?
So why did you leave your spot? Well, by the evening of October 19th, he had taken up a defensive position on the Alexandria to Winchester Turnpike, modern-day State Route 7, which was east of town. McClellan came to Drainesville to consult with McCall that very same evening and ordered McCall to return to his main camp at Langley, Virginia, the following morning. However, McCall requested additional time to complete some mapping of the roads in the area, and as a result, did not actually leave for Langley until the morning of the 21st of October, just as the fighting at Ball's Bluff was heating up.
The fighting heats up, and he's like, all right, I think I'll go back to Langley now.
Nah, they got it.
On October 20th, while McCall was completing his mapping, McClellan ordered Brigadier General Charles Pomeroy Stone to conduct what he called a slight demonstration in order to see how the Confederates might react.
Okay.
Stone moved troops to the river at Edwards Ferry, positioned other forces along the river, had his artillery fire into suspected Confederate positions, and briefly crossed about 100 men of the 1st Minnesota to the Virginia shore just before dusk.
Oh.
Having got no reaction from Colonel Evans with all of this activity, Stone recalled his troops to their camps, and the slight demonstration came to an end.
Yeah, it was a slight demonstration, all right.
Either Confederates weren't responding purposely or there was nobody there.
Right. Stone then ordered Colonel Charles Devens of the 15th Massachusetts Infantry, stationed on Harrison's Island facing Ball's Bluff, to send a patrol across the river at that point to gather what information it could about enemy deployments or any type of activity. Let me know what's going on over there, please. Devon sent Captain Chase Philbrick and approximately 20 men to carry out Stone's orders.
This is the Army in a nutshell.
Right.
The top guy sends an order, goes to the other one. Hey, why don't we send this guy? Hey, let's go send that guy. Hey, let's send this guy.
Grab yourself 20 men and...
Right. They're like, I don't know. Who do we go tell to? I guess we have to.
I guess we're the last ones.
We're the ones.
Dang. Kevin's not here. Give this to Kevin. Yep. Last one. Advancing in the dark nearly a mile inland from the bluff, the inexperienced Philbrick mistook a row of trees for tents of the Confederate camp, and without verifying what he saw, returned and reported the existence of a camp. Stone immediately ordered Devens to cross some 300 men, and as soon as it was light enough to see, attack the camp per his orders. Return to your present position.
So hurry up, go attack them sons of bitches and come back.
Little did he know.
A row of trees. Better take your axes.
Right.
This was the genesis of the Battle of the Balls Bluff. Contrary to the long-held traditional interpretation, it did not come from a plan by either McClellan or Stone to take Leesburg. The initial crossing of troops was a small reconnaissance. Mm-hmm. That was followed by what was intended to be a raiding party. To make matters worse, Stone was not advised that McCall and his division had been ordered back to Washington.
Oh,
jeez.
Senor Duck.
So, I don't understand. The Union sucks at communication.
Right.
Well, we got the Army of Potomac. George B. McClellan is the major general there, but he's not even present.
Nope.
And then we have the Corps of Observation, led by Brigadier General Charles Pomeroy Stone. We have Stone's division, led by Charles Pomeroy Stone himself, which had the 1st Company Massachusetts Sharpshooters, 7th Michigan Infantry, 19th Massachusetts Infantry, and the 20th Massachusetts Infantry.
Okay.
Then we had the 2nd Brigade, led by Brigadier General Willis Gorman, which had the 1st Minnesota Infantry, the 2nd New York State Militia, the 34th New York Infantry. Our 3rd Brigade, led by Colonel Edward Baker, had the 1st California Infantry, the 2nd California Infantry, the 3rd California Infantry, and the 5th California Infantry.
Dang.
Apparently didn't want to take the 4th there. And then
these dudes, they made these dudes travel 3,000 miles on foot, and then they had to battle instantly.
Right.
Oh, they probably took a train. Is there a train from California by then? No, there's no train, 1861.
Unassigned regiments, we had the 15th Massachusetts Infantry, 42nd New York Infantry. Don't know why they were unassigned, but then we had cavalry as well, 3rd New York Cavalry Regiment, Putnam Rangers from D.C. Volunteer Cavalry, and some artillery, 1st U.S. Artillery Battery 1, and 1st Rhode Island getting in on the action, Light Artillery Battery B.
Well, you got New York State Militia Artillery Detachment and the 6th New York Independent Battery.
Right. Over on Confederate side, led by Colonel Nathan Shanks Evans and General Joseph E. Johnson, who wasn't present. We had the 7th Brigade, led by Colonel Evans, 8th Virginia Infantry, 13th Mississippi Infantry, 17th Mississippi, 18th Mississippi. Then we had the cavalry, led by Lieutenant Corporal Walter Jennifer, had the Chesterfield Light Dragoons, had the Loudon Cavalry, the Madison Invincibles, the Powhatan Troop, and the Wise Dragoons. And artillery consisted of the Richmond Howitzers, 1st Company. Dude, they had some strength. There's some people fighting, huh?
Morning of 21st of October, Colonel Devens' raiding party discovered the mistake made the previous evening by the patrol. There was no camp to raid. It's a bunch of freaking trees. Opting not to recross the river immediately, Devens deployed his men to a tree line and sent a messenger back to report to Stone and get new instructions, which is smart, right? Like, hey, we're here.
Right. Do you want us to do some other stuff? Or
might as well stay here.
Go back to the damn camp. What do you want me to do?
On hearing the messenger's report, Stone sent him back to tell Devens that the remainder of the 15th Massachusetts, or another 350 men, would cross the river and move to his position. When they arrived, Devens was to turn his raiding party back into reconnaissance and move toward Leesburg.
All right. Well, yeah. So basically, he's going to be relieved by those 350 men, and he's on his way to go scout some more area.
Right. Clearly, Devens' guys are not battlers.
Well, they'd be the first to engage.
Right.
If they came up upon somebody. So, while the messenger was going back to Colonel Devens with this new information, Colonel and U.S. Senator Edward Dickinson Baker showed up at Stone's camp to find out about the morning's events. He had not been involved in any of the activities to that point. Stone told him of the mistake about the camp and about his new orders to reinforce Devens for reconnaissance purposes. He then instructed Baker to go to the crossing point, evaluate the situation, and either withdraw the troops already in Virginia or cross additional troops at his discretion.
Okay.
So it's up to you, man. You wanna cross more? You go ahead.
Want to pursue this more? I would, right? That's more land that you're taking. On the way upriver to execute this order, Baker met Devens' messenger, coming back to a second time to report that Devens and his men had encountered a briefly engagement with the old enemy. Oh, one company of the 17th Mississippi Infantry. Baker immediately ordered as many troops as he could find to cross the river, but he had to do so without determining what boats were available to do this. A bottleneck quickly developed so that Union troops could only cross slowly and in small numbers, making the crossing last throughout the day. Meanwhile, Devon's men, now about 650 strong, remained in its advanced position and engaged in 2 additional skirmishes with a growing force of Confederates, while other Union troops crossed the river but deployed near the bluff and did not advance from there.
Oh, geez,
why not? Devens finally withdrew around 2 p.m. and met Baker, who had finally crossed the river half an hour later. Beginning around 3 o'clock, the fight began in earnest and was almost continuous until just after dark.
Sink your heels in, boys.
We're in for a long one.
Well, Colonel Baker was killed at about 4:30 p.m. and remains the only United States senator ever killed in battle.
Wow.
Following an abortive attempt to break out of their constricted position around the bluff, the Federals began to recross the river in some disarray. Shortly before dark, a fresh Confederate regiment, which was the 17th Mississippi, arrived and formed the core of the climatic assault that finally broke and routed their Union troops.
Jeez.
Many of the Union soldiers were driven down the steep slope at the southern end of Ball's Bluff, behind the current location of the National Cemetery, and into the river. Boats attempting to cross back to Harrison Island were soon swamped and capsized.
Dang.
Many Federals, included some of the wounded, were drowned.
Dang. That suck. I mean,
why is it when the Confederates lose, they just get their asses handed to them or something, and then, they retreat. Whenever the Union loses like this, they always do some stupid, embarrassing shit.
And they're caught, in between a corner and nowhere to go.
I don't understand what the hell goes on here.
I just love looking at the pictures and photographs of Civil War.
Well, it's a painting, but...
Right. 10 feet away battles, and that's the truth.
That's probably a little dramatized.
I don't think so, bud.
You're a couple 100 yards away.
If that dude shot him in the head, he'd definitely end up grabbing his head.
Yeah. Well, definitely. The bullet, you can see the line of the bullet.
All right. He's just falling over. Mm-hmm. No time to grab your head.
And there's a pumpkin in the background.
On legs.
Right. What is that?
What is
that? Supposed to be Ball's Bluff? It's like a ball.
And he's bluffing. He has a card. And what's that?
Oh, I wonder if this dude shot him. Because he's got his pistol out.
Well, there's a guy laying on the ground and he's wearing a red shirt. So there's the British guy there? Or is that Rock?
I don't know. Well, it's definitely a guy on the ground, right? So there looks like one right there, too.
Oh, jeez.
Looks like one right here, too.
Bodies floated downriver to Washington, even as far as Mount Vernon, in the days following the battle. Dang.
Jeez.
A total of 223 Federals were killed, 226 wounded, 550 were captured on the banks of the Potomac later that night. Dang. 553 were captured. These dudes lost almost 1,000 men.
Pretty much, yeah.
The official records incorrectly state that only 49 Federals were killed at the battle, an error probably resulting from a mistake reading of the report of the Union burial detail, which crossed over the next day under flag of truce. 54 Union dead, of whom only one is identified, are buried in Ball's Bluff National Cemetery. A Union howitzer captured by Confederate forces was recaptured on the 29th of May in 1863 from John S. Mosby. He raided Greenwich, Virginia. Okay. Then he had to get that cannon back. He's like, I need that howitzer, baby.
49 Federals buried at
and only
54 Union dead, of whom is only one is identified is buried in Ball's Bluff Battlefield and National Cemetery. One identified. They didn't even know who these guys were, dude.
So there's 53. Imagine how many. Imagine.
Or towards the whole war, right? Like, how many do you even... They don't even know.
Right. Well, apparently there's 223 killed, so most of them are floating down the river. I don't know who they are. Damn, that's sad news, Bears.
Mm-hmm. This Union defeat was relatively minor in comparison to the battles to come in the war, but it had an enormously wide impact in and out of military affairs.
We were reacting over 223, almost 1,000. Pretty soon we're going to get to
10,000.
5,000 dead. Oh, my.
In addition to losing 223 soldiers, the Union lost a sit-in senator, right, which led to severe political ramifications in Washington.
Right.
Stone was treated as the scapegoat for the defeat, but members of Congress suspected that there was a conspiracy to betray the Union. The ensuing outcry and a desire to learn why federal forces had lost battles at Bull Run, Wilson's Creek, and Ball's Bluff led to the establishment of the Congressional Joint Committee on the Conduct of the War. Now they're going to start holding these guys. Now they're going to start holding these guys responsible for the shitty planning and shitty stuff they've been doing.
Guess who's probably going to be the first one to fall? Oh, General McClellan.
Well, that would be devil Union officers for the remainder of the war, particularly those who were Democrats, and contribute to nasty political infighting amongst the generals and the high command. Yeah, these guys. Obviously it's only the first few months of the war, but I'm absolutely astounded how the Union even won.
Lieutenant Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. of the 20th Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry survived a nearly fatal wound at Ball's Bluff to become an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States in 1902.
Damn, 40 years later.
Herman Melville's poem, Ball's Bluff, a Reverie, published in 1866, commemorates the battle. Holmes's great friend and role model, Lieutenant Henry Livermore Abbott, also survived the battle, but did not survive the war. 1865. Abbott was promoted to Brigadier General. Another outstanding young officer named Edmund Rice, also eventually reached the rank of Brigadier General, was awarded the Medal of Honor and was fortunate enough to survive the war by near of half a century. Nice. Second Lieutenant John William Grout of the 15th Massachusetts was killed in the battle. His death inspired a poem and later a song titled The Vacant Chair.
The Vacant Chair. The site of the battlefield is preserved as the Balls Bluff Battlefield and National Cemetery, which was declared a National Historic Landmark in 1984.
Okay.
The park is maintained by the Northern Virginia Regional Park Authority, and the battlefield area has been restored over time to look much like it did in 1861. That would be cool.
It would.
Interpretive tours are given by volunteer guides throughout the spring, summer, and fall, each weekend at 11 to 1. 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. That's it. The Civil War Trust, a division of the American Battlefield Trust, and its partners have acquired and preserved 3 acres of the battlefield.
That's why he's only 11 to 1.
Right, it's not that big.
And I'm surprised it takes that long for 3 acres.
3 acres, I mean...
Nothing.
Kind of big.
Bernard Cornwell's Copperhead, the second installment of the Starbuck Chronicles, begins with the Battle of Ball's Bluff.
All right.
The fictional Falconer Legion is placed at the left flank of the Confederate position, led by Captain Starbuck's K Company, begins the rout on the Union forces. Okay.
The Starbuck Chronicles about the war, I'm assuming.
Maybe. Geraldine Brooks's March, winner of the 2006 Pulitzer Prize for Fiction, also opens with the Battle of Ball's Bluff. Mr. March, the father in Louisa May Alcott's Little Women, is it Louisa?
Sure.
Is the chaplain serving with the Union Army. So, okay.
Okay. Along the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal on the Maryland side, it was rumored that ghosts of departed soldiers from that battle, particularly those who drowned in one of the boats that sank in the Potomac, haunted that area. So canal workers did not stay in that area overnight.
But they did.
Tied up for boats. They tied up their boats elsewhere.
Could you imagine?
They're like, yeah, I don't think so.
I will bet you there's such thing as ghosts. They are. And you're on a battlefield like that? Oh, just imagine. I don't think there's ghosts in cemeteries.
Why? I think the most common thing is
I think the ghosts went
they usually follow. They usually stay where they die.
Right, that's what I'm saying. They usually are where they die. They just don't go places. Like, ooh, my childhood home. Let's haunt this place. It has to be everywhere. All of them are haunted.
A soldier's orphanage cellar is said to make psychics too afraid to enter the house.
Some crazy stuff going on there, buddy. Crazy stuff going on in India.
Lincoln's ghost.
No, not
haunt the White House. Why?
No, not at the White. Why would it be at the White House?
Calvin Coolidge's wife claims to spot Lincoln's ghost.
Oh, jeez.
Looking at the Potomac River, sadly, from the Oval Office. Right, that's going to do it for us on this episode of Battles of the Civil War. That was I always forget, it was like 2 seconds ago. Battles of Camp Wildcat, Battle of Fredericktown, and battles of the Battle of Ball's Bluff. We'll be back next week for probably the first Battle of Springfield, the Battle of Port Royal, the Battle of Belmont, and at least those 3, maybe couple more, Ivy Mountain, Round Mountain, depending on how long they are. We'd like to keep them 30 35 to 40 minutes long on these episodes. Too much, a lot of information to go and into an hour and all that stuff. So
Right.
with that being said, if you guys are fans of history, which I assume you are since you're listening to this, and if you made it this far, we have another podcast called Outlaws and Gunslingers where we look at exactly what the title says, outlaws and gunslingers, criminals, all that type of good stuff, the lawmen, from Prohibition, from the Wild West to gangs of today, tomorrow. Well, yeah, we know.
Right.
We know about the gangs of tomorrow. Don't you worry. Right now, we're in the middle of the Oklahoma City bombing. We just wrapped up episode 1, profiling both Terry Nichols and Timothy McVeigh. Our second episode was all about the bombing itself, and we will have a third one next week covering the trials of both men and lots of stuff like that. We also finished the Unabomber just a couple of weeks ago. Jonestown we've done. Lots of stuff like that. So if you guys are a fan of history and crime, go check us out over there. Outlaws and Gunslingers. We'll be back next week for Battles of the American Civil War. We are the Monthly Michiganders with
Bang Dang.